In a quiet village surrounded by golden fields of grain, there lived a humble farmer named Raghav. He was known not only for the sweat on his brow and the fruits of his labor, but also for the pride he took in raising his 4 sons. The 3 eldest boys were clever and quick-minded. They could read situations like open scrolls, manage the land, and speak with wisdom beyond their years. But the youngest was different. His mind was slow, his thoughts not as sharp, and sometimes the villagers whispered that he would never manage life on his own. Yet nature has a way of balancing its gifts. What the boy lacked in wit, he carried in his body. Broad shoulders, a chest like a bull, and the strength of 3 men. Raghav worried. My older sons, he thought, will find their way in the world. They are clever enough to carve their own fortune. But what about my youngest? How will he eat when I am gone? He pondered long until an idea struck him. His body, the farmer realized, is built like a warrior's. If his mind cannot protect him, his strength surely will. Let him learn the art of wrestling. So it was decided. The boy, fed on the best food, trained daily with the rigor of a true Pelwan. He wrestled the village boys, ran through the fields, lifted stones, and learned the subtle locks and throws of the wrestler's tradition. Slowly, his name spread. The once slow-minded boy became the strongest man in the village. Time passed. Raghav saw his 3 elder sons marry and settle with their wives. But peace never lingers too long under one roof. The daughters-in-law began to whisper. Why should he eat the choicest food? They complained, glancing at their brother-in-law, who spent his days wrestling instead of toiling in the fields. We and our husbands labor from sunrise to sunset, and he enjoys without working. Jealousy is a flame that quickly turns to fire. Soon, the household was restless. To ease the quarrels, Raghav decided it was time. Even his wrestler son must marry. He searched far and wide until he found a girl whose beauty stunned all who saw her. But she was not merely beautiful, she was learned, with knowledge of 14 sciences, wise beyond her youth. The wrestler married her, and soon after, the father divided his lands and homes among his sons. Live separately, he said, for peace is worth more than gold. The elder sons prospered. With wit and toil, they made their homes flourish. But the wrestler's story was different. Strength alone does not feed the stomach. His wife, though loving, began to worry. You eat like a king, she scolded, and wrestle as if the world depended on it. But tell me, where is the money for our household? How shall we live if you do not work? Her words were sharp, but not cruel. She loved him, and behind her frustration lay wisdom. One evening, as the lamp flickered low, she said, Go to the king. Tell him you wish to serve. Ask for the post of Lakatakia. Her husband blinked. Lakatakia? What work is that? She smiled faintly. Do not worry. Tell him, give me the work no one else can do, not your army, not your army, not your ministers. For that, I ask 1 lakh coins a day. The wrestler hesitated. But I know nothing except to fight and to eat. Trust me, she replied, her eyes steady. Your strength will find its place. So with reluctant steps, the giant went to the royal court. The king, upon seeing his mighty form, felt intrigued. What brings you here, strong one? Asked the king. I seek employment, said the wrestler. What can you do? Whatever none of you can do, the wrestler replied boldly. For that, I ask 1 lakh coins each day. The court erupted in whispers. The king turned to his ministers, who, after searching old records, found that even the king's father had once kept such a man in service. So the king agreed. Very well. You shall be our Lakatakia. You will live in the royal gardens, in a palace fit for your size. When a task arises that none can accomplish, you shall be called. And so, from a poor farmer's house, the slow-witted wrestler rose overnight to wealth, luxury, and royal favor. He lived in ease, unaware that his strength would soon be tested not by combat, but by cunning. The wrestler's life changed overnight. Where once he ate at his father's table, now he dined in the palace gardens. He slept on silken sheets, drank sweet milk, and walked beneath flowering trees that bent under the weight of fruit. His only duty was to wait until the king faced some impossible task. Days passed in idleness. He trained his body, sparred with the royal guards, and enjoyed the comforts of wealth. But in the king's mind, a question grew sharper with each sunrise. Have I been fooled? What if this man, despite his size, has no true worth? 1,00,000 coins. A day is no small treasure. One morning, while strolling with his ministers, the king's doubts spilled into words. This man eats, sleeps, and grows fat in my gardens. He claims he can do what none of us can. Yet I have not seen his worth. Perhaps we should cast him out. The ministers, ever eager to please, agreed. Your Majesty, he is but a wrestler, nothing more. Let us rid the treasury of this burden. But among them was one old minister, shrewder than the rest. He bowed and said, O king, it is true we have not yet tested him. But wisdom says, do not discard a sword before you see if it cuts. Why not set him a task so difficult that no one in this court can hope to succeed? If he fails, he will leave in disgrace. If he succeeds, then his wages are justified. Li, king considered. So be it. But what task shall we give him? The minister's eyes glinted. Summon the wrestler. We will ask him himself what he can do. So the giant was brought before the court. He bowed awkwardly, towering over the courtiers. The king spoke with a sly smile. Tell me, strong one, what great task can you accomplish for us that none of us could ever hope to do? The wrestler hesitated. For the first time, he felt truly cornered. His mind was slow, and the eyes of the entire court pressed down on him like a weight heavier than any stone he had lifted. He shifted uncomfortably, and at last muttered, Give me one night, my lord. By morning, I will have your answer. The court laughed, but the king, curious, allowed it. Very well. You have until dawn. Fail, and you will be sent away. That evening, the wrestler returned to his palace with a heavy heart. His wife, seeing his troubled face, asked softly, What burdens you, my husband? He explained everything, the court's doubts, the king's demand, his own helplessness. She listened without interruption. Then she smiled, calm and sure. Do not fear. Tomorrow, you will give them an answer that no man in the world can deny. Listen carefully. And she whispered her plan. At dawn, the court assembled. The wrestler stood before the throne, shoulders broad, chest out, but his voice steady with a new confidence. My lord, he said, I can do something that no man here can do, not you, not your ministers, not even your army. I can eat a full meal worth 1,00,000 coins in a single day. The court erupted in laughter, mocking and jeering. But the old minister raised his hand. Silence. The man speaks. Truth. None of us, not even our mighty king, could consume food worth 1,00,000 coins in one sitting. But he can. Therefore, his claim is valid. The king's laughter faltered. He studied the wrestler's towering frame, the strength in his limbs, and at last he nodded. Indeed, you speak truly. For what is impossible for others, if you alone can do it, then that is enough. So the wrestler's place in the court was secured. His wife's wisdom had saved him from disgrace. And though the courtiers muttered behind his back, none could deny the strange justice of his claim. But destiny is never satisfied with small trials. The time was approaching when the king would face a task so great, so dangerous, that no general, no minister, and no soldier could hope to complete it. When that hour arrived, the fate of the kingdom would rest not on wit or sword, but on the strength and loyalty of the slow-witted wrestler from the farmer's field. Seasons turned, and the kingdom prospered. The wrestler, though mocked by some, continued to live in royal comfort. He trained daily, his strength growing like the roots of an ancient banyan tree. Yet deep within the palace walls, whispers persisted. He eats like 10 men. But what has he done for the crown? He is no warrior, merely a fool with muscles. The king squanders wealth on this simpleton. But fate has a way of silencing whispers. One summer evening, a messenger galloped into the capital, his horse foaming, his face pale. He threw himself before the throne. "Your Majesty," he cried, "an enemy force gathers across the river. They are fierce men, clad in iron, with elephants and horses more numerous than our own. Their leader has sworn to cross into your lands and take this kingdom as his own." The court erupted in panic. Some ministers urged negotiation. Others spoke of retreat. Generals argued over strategies, yet none could agree. The enemy's strength was overwhelming. At last, the king raised his hand. "Silence, we must fight. But tell me, who will lead the first charge across the river?" A hush fell. The river was wide and furious, its currents swallowing even seasoned swimmers. Beyond its waters waited an army thirsting for conquest. None stepped forward. Then, from the back of the court, a deep voice rumbled, "I will go." All turned. It was the wrestler. The ministers sneered. "You? What can a slow-witted wrestler do against war elephants and steel?" But the king's eyes lit with hope. "Yes," he said softly. "Perhaps this is the moment we have awaited." The old minister stepped forth. "Majesty, none among us could hope to cross that river with such strength, nor face an enemy host bare-handed. But he can. Let him try." The king agreed. "Very well. Wrestler, take what men you need and cross the river. Show us your worth." That night, in the palace gardens, the wrestler confessed his fear to his wife. "How can I, a simple man, face an army?" She placed her hand upon his shoulder. "Do not fear. Strength without wisdom is wasted, but strength guided by wisdom can move mountains. Remember what I say. Take no army. Take only yourself. Cross the river alone. When the enemy sees one man come forth, they will laugh. But when they see what you can do, they will tremble." And so it was decided. At dawn, the wrestler stripped down to a loincloth, tied his hair, and smeared his body with oil. With a roar that echoed like thunder, he plunged into the river. The waters foamed around him, but his arms churned like oars of a great ship. Villagers gathered along the banks, gasping as his massive form cut through the current. Within minutes, he reached the far shore. The enemy soldiers, seeing one lone man emerge from the waters, laughed and jeered. "Is this the champion of the king? A single fool sent to die?" But their laughter died when he lifted a tree, trunk uprooted with bare hands, and swung it like a mace. With each strike, men fell as if struck by lightning. Horses reared, elephants shrieked, soldiers scattered like dry leaves in a storm. Enemy general, enraged, rode forth on his war elephant. The beast charged, tusks gleaming. The wrestler leapt, seized its trunk, and with a roar, twisted until the giant animal collapsed with a crash that shook the earth. The enemy army broke. Fear spread faster than fire. They fled into the forests, leaving weapons, elephants, and treasure behind. From the city walls, the king and his court watched in awe as the wrestler returned across the river, dripping with water, dragging spoils of war behind him. The people cheered. The courtiers who once mocked him bowed their heads. The king himself descended from his throne to embrace him. "Today," the king declared, "you have done what no army could do. You have saved my kingdom." From that day on, the wrestler was no longer a fool in the eyes of men. He was the guardian of the realm, the living shield of the king. Yet even his glory shone upon him. In his heart he knew none of this would have been possible without the quiet wisdom of the one who guided him, his wife. From that day, the wrestler was celebrated as the kingdom's savior. Bards sang his name, children played games pretending to be him, and even the haughty courtiers now bowed low in respect. Where once they had mocked, now they marveled. The king, grateful, doubled his daily reward. The wrestler dined not only on fine foods, but also on honor. He had become more than a man, he was a legend. And yet, something stirred uneasily in his heart. Each night, when the palace had fallen silent, his wife's voice would echo in his mind. Strength without wisdom is wasted. Strength guided by wisdom can move mountains. He thought back to the river, the battle, the elephant's cry. He had crushed the enemy with his hands. Yes, but was that the true reason they fled? Or was it fear, planted in their minds by his wife's cunning plan? One evening, as he walked through the royal gardens heavy with fruit, he turned to her and said, "Beloved, I owe all of this to you. Without your guidance, I would still be a fool mocked by courtiers. Tell me, what should I do now? Continue to fight until my body breaks? Or is there something greater than victory in battle?" She smiled gently. "Husband, you have conquered armies. But the greatest victory is not over others, it is over yourself. Pride, anger, greed, these are enemies stronger than any warrior. If you can defeat them, no force in this world can harm you." Her words pierced deeper than any spear. The very next day, the king called his council. "Another campaign lies before us," he declared. "Our enemies gather once more. Wrestler, you will lead the charge again." All eyes turned to him. The court expected him to roar in readiness, to lift his mighty arms and promise another impossible triumph. But instead, he knelt. "My king," he said, voice calm as the river after a storm, "I have given you my strength, and I would give my life if you asked it. But listen, the strength of a man fades, the arm grows weak, the body bends, the fire dims. No kingdom can endure forever through war. Victory over others breeds only new enemies. But victory over oneself, this alone brings peace." The court gasped. Some thought him mad, others accused him of cowardice. But the king studied his champion in silence. Then, slowly, the king nodded. "You speak wisely. Armies may guard my borders, but only wisdom guards my throne. Perhaps the truest service you can offer is not your muscle, but your example." So the wrestler laid down his weapon. He no longer fought battles, no longer marched with armies. Instead, he taught the young men of the kingdom, training not only their bodies, but also their minds. He spoke of patience, humility, and the strength that lies in restraint. Years passed. His fame grew, but not for his feats of war. He was remembered instead as the giant who learned gentleness, the strong man who chose peace. When his final days came, the king himself sat at his bedside. The wrestler's wife held his hand, and with his last breath, he whispered, "Muscles wither, kingdoms fall, but wisdom endures." The greatest victory is not to defeat the world, it is to defeat the self. And thus ended the tale of the slow-witted wrestler who became the guardian of a kingdom, not by strength alone, but by the wisdom of a quiet voice beside him, and by the final realization that true conquest lies not in bending others, but in mastering one's own heart.